is, in some sense, preparation for a course we're going to be giving at AU, which will be a hands-on lab on how to use InfraWorks 360 to do some interesting things. And Brandon Amick, who's one of our senior consultants, will be walking you through the details today. So I think we're going to sort of navigate through some just preliminary slides here. So the content of today's training is creating a new model from scratch, and there's a new feature coming in InfraWorks 360 called the Model Builder, which is a super cost-effective feature that allows you to get off-the-shelf data for roads and waterworks and elevation models and digital imagery as part of the Autodesk 360 service. Then we're going to add custom data from existing databases. We're going to synchronize the model with the cloud because the collaborative tools of the new product are really excellent. And we'll show you how you can do design on top of that and then do flyovers to show, how the infrastructure is going to look and sort of walk stakeholders through it. One of the key principles of InfraWorks is stakeholder engagement, whether that be internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. So summary of the features of InfraWorks 360. We talked about this, automated model creation. Some pretty cool sketching and layout capabilities that allow you to design right in the 3D model on the elevation and to size, scale, and rotate in 3D really easily, actual models of your infrastructure. Collaborating over the cloud, there's a new feature that's available, an iPad app for viewing a 3D model in place and doing some interaction and gathering some site information using that. Presentations, of course, is a key part, and Brandon will be defining a presentation and flying you through it. And also, of course, the excellent tools for importing and managing both 3D point cloud data and surfaces and that whole part of it. And then pulling data in from other data sources like AUD, ArcGIS databases, any kind of database. So basically, InfraWorks can act as a 3D visualizer and a data integrator so that you can publish up-to-date and timely models throughout the organization. Go ahead. Okay, so there's a few examples there. The ability to detect some conflicts is there. We're not going to go into a lot of detail around that. It's the ability to bring in civil 3D models and actually export civil 3D models as well, so you can design a bridge or a road network in InfraWorks and directly export it into civil 3D. And use it as a reference model in the field, and then do all sorts of visual analysis on the 3D data structures that you're working with. So, InfraWorks is a really interesting new approach for Autodesk, and we're really pleased to see it as good as it is now. One thing for people who have already started to use it and may have been intimidated by some of the data gathering and the performance, this new tool for pre-building your model data and the rendering speeds are vastly improved. So it's actually very impressive how quickly you can render and visualize a model in 3D pretty much in a few minutes, as you'll see hopefully today. Go to the next slide, please. One other thing that's really valuable is the use of Recap 360. So we've got an example of that here. Obviously, AutoCAD map can be used to prepare and build the 3D surface models. We've done a lot of work with that. Map actually has some excellent tools for surface generation from LiDAR models and point clouds. And that'll actually be part of a bigger AU workshop that we did. We did that last year, and it was pretty well received. So we're going to be doing a little bit more of that next year, or this year rather, in November. And you can bring in all sorts of aerial photos, The recap 3D aspect is really excellent because it allows you to go out to the field with inexpensive equipment, take potentially georeferenced or even non-georeferenced models, build really photorealistic 3D models from them, download them, and pretty much plunk them directly into your InfraWorks 360 model. So you can take, an existing model and put in place, as we've done here, like a 3D pad-mounted transformer or, kind of damaged conduit infrastructure. You can put those right into the situation of your 3D model and visualize them and allow stakeholders to see the state of the actual infrastructure and compare it to the future state that you're designing. So with that, I'll hand it off to Brandon and go on mute, and if you have questions toward the end, we will be happy to answer them.
Okay. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Can you hear me okay, Jessica? Are we good?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Okay. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at InfraWorks, an overview of kind of the UI here, and then we're going to start with some data from the city of Alexandria, Louisiana, that Curtis was nice enough to let us use, and kind of show how to get a base model up and running so you can create some storyboards and start to do some modeling and give some examples and all that sort of stuff. So where we're at now, we're here at the main menu, so you can see I've got several models, and if we scroll down some, there's more that you can see, and you can sort them in a variety of ways. So you can do it by the date modified, you can sort it by the name of the model, or you can sort it by author, so you can find models that were created by a certain person. Up here we've got the ability to create a new model, to open a model, or to create a model using the model builder, which is what we'll be starting with in a bit. Up here is how you manage your online models and scenarios. If you click on that, you can see here's my list of what I have up in the cloud right now, and I could modify those and remove them and download them as necessary. So the first thing to do to get started, we're going to start out with going into Model Builder. So this is a new feature that Stephen was talking about, and it comes up fairly quickly here. And so you can see you've got a map of the U.S. right now up. So there's a few ways to kind of go about it. If you know exactly where you're going, you can zoom in on the map, and you can find your location here by doing it that way. And you can see we're zoomed into part of Alexandria, or you can go up here in the search. You can see here we found Alexandria, and we just tell it OK, and it zooms into Alexandria. And then we can zoom in further from there to get a specific part that we want. So there's a few ways to start by making the model. You can just click and drag a rectangle shape like this, and basically you just drag it out however big, and it tells you how many square kilometers it is by default. So the highlighted area is what we would end up starting with. A couple of other ways you can draw a polygon. So we can get something like this, like so. Or we can actually import a polygon to select the area as well. So for our purposes, this polygon here is probably fine. You can choose whether to use roads or not. So if you have your own road data that you want to import, you could tell it just, hey, just grab me buildings, imagery, and elevation, and I'll bring my own roads in. In this case, we're going to grab roads as well. So we want to give it a little name. We'll just call it My Alex Model 2, because I believe I've already got one My Alex model. So you do that, and then you just have to click the Create Model, and it takes just a few seconds to process. It's pretty quick. And then once it's done, so it's ready to process, so it 360 will actually process it in the background. And what happens is when it's done, you'll get sent a little email notification that tells you, hey, your model's done and ready to download. So if I actually go, I've got an email from one earlier. So if you take a look here, it just says, hey, success, your model's been created and is ready for use. So once you get that email, it's ready to go. For a model, fairly small like we just did, it takes probably 10 to 15 minutes at the most to be done. And then you get a little email notification and you're ready to go. Obviously, the larger the model is, the longer it'll take to process, smaller, less time, and so on. So that's processing, but we've got one ready to go already that we'll work with. So in here, we've got the model we're going to work with. There's a few options. So you can open the model. You can make a duplicate of the model. So if you've got one that you're already happy with and you want to make some changes to, but you're not sure about, you can always make a duplicate of the model. You can delete the model. It shows how large the model is. So 500 megabytes on this one, not too bad. It's fairly large, but for a 3D model for what we've got here, it's, pretty reasonable. This icon here, you can see on this one, it's got a little house icon. That means it's a local model. Over here, it's got a little cloud icon, so this is actually up in the cloud. And so that's how you can differentiate the two. So we'll open this one up. And I had it preloaded, so it's ready to go, but it loads in just a few seconds. So you can see, zoom out a little bit, you can see I've got a pretty big model here. You can see off pretty far in the distance here. But we're just going to work with this little downtown area right here. So I will go to my bookmark. So you can make bookmarks here, and you could add new bookmarks. And so they're basically just a place that you can jump to. So I know I want to work right here, so I have a bookmark set. And then I have a bookmark set for back out at this view. And you can make as many as you want to. If you have certain areas that you're working on, like we're working here downtown, maybe you have another place across on the other side of the river, you can create a bookmark for that. So that way you're not having to pan around, try to find where your location was. You just save a bookmark and just click on it, and you can go right to it. Okay, so we've got our model open, and we're ready to start actually working with our electric data. The first thing, though, Stephen mentioned you can bring in 3D models. We've got some 3D models that are just electric models, poles, and transformers, and that sort of thing. So those are what we're going to use to actually visually represent the electric data. So before we start doing that, we need to make sure that we've got those in our system here. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually go to our style palette. And then there's an option here. You can create a new one, but we've got some ready, so we're just going to import one. If we go here, so you can see the description here. We've got some handholds, transformers, solar panels, so on and so on. And we're just going to import the JSON file for all these guys. And so we tell it to open. And then should take it just a minute here. And looks like we're good. So we'll click on 3D models and go down to utilities. And you can see we've got some poles in here, transformers, and so on. So it's pretty quick and painless once you've got the 3D model ready to go. You might have to do a little work to get your 3D model ready, or find one. There's lots you can find on SketchUp that are free to use and that sort of stuff. So they're pretty easy to come by. You just want to make sure you have them imported so they're ready to go. So now that we've made sure that we're good there, it's time to start importing some data. So up here in navigation, this little cube little blocks. This is where you do sort of model management, where you can import data. You saw where I went to the style palette and so on. The pointer is just for selecting features. The pencil is for editing features, and you can edit the style palette and edit rows and so on and so forth. But for what we're wanting to do right now, we just want to bring in some of our electric data. So you click on data sources here. You can see where there's already some in here. These are what were added by default. So this is just the base model. I haven't done any modifications to it or anything. You can see it's all, pretty clean. The buildings fit in well with the terrain. The roads are in there nicely. There's no jagged edges or anything. Like, everything's in here pretty nicely. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to work with some SQLite files. So there's a few ways you can connect the data. You could connect straight to a database itself. So if you're stored in, say, Oracle, and you've got a table for like your electric poles, you could connect straight to your Oracle database. Like I said, we're going to work with some SQLite files down here. You can see, there's a bunch of different files you can bring in. There's civil 3D drawings, 3D models, XML, point clouds, and so on. So you can work with a bunch of different file types. So we're going to click SQLite here, and it brings up the last one that was open. So conveniently, we're already here. So the first thing we're going to start with is an electric pole. So we choose it and just click open, and it brings it in. Basically, it's just basically connected to the SQLite file, but it's not actually on the map yet. We have to configure it. So we just right-click. There's a few options. You can rename it, reconnect to it, remove it altogether, but we just need to configure it because the EL pole is good enough for what we need. So we will resize this a little bit so you guys can see better. So this is a pole. So in the electric model here, basically we're going to have two types. They're either going to be a pipeline connector, which a pole would be a connector, or it's going to be a pipeline itself like the conductors. So we're going to choose that it's a connector. And then we are going to set its X and Y, so that's basically setting how large the pole is going to be for width. So we'll bring it in as 8 inches by 8 inches, and we'll say it's going to be 35 feet tall. So that's kind of the basics. All these other defaults are fine. The style is what I imported earlier. So if you just click the pencil here, so there's a few default connectors, but we've got a 3D model we want to use. So we'll go to our 3D model, down to Utilities, and we'll just choose a fairly basic pole here and tell it OK. And then we'll go here, make sure our coordinate system is good. It is. It usually uses what's the default for the model itself, so we're good here. And then we want to make sure we clip to the model extent, because we don't want, if there's stuff that's not in our model extents, we don't need those, so there's no reason to try to load all that stuff. And then just click close and refresh. It should just take a few seconds here. And everything's loading in, and here they are. So we'll adjust down a little bit. So you can see the electric pole. I've got shadows turned on. You can turn it off if you want to help your performance a little bit, but you can see the poles are in there, and the shadows are showing up, so it looks pretty good. Everything's in here like we want it, so we're good there. So the next thing we want to do is we've got our poles in. We need to add the conductors. So very similar process as before. We just want to choose a SQLite file, and we've got conductor right here. Open it up, and then we want to configure it like we did with the poles. So we just go to configure. And this is an actual pipeline, so we'll do it as a pipeline, not as a connector. So we want to set the elevation offset so our conductors will actually be up in the air. So we're going to set them for 20 feet. And we'll give them a size of, we're going to call it 8 by 8 for now. And then for these, we can use, we'll start with this metal pipe here. See what we get here. So we'll double check our coordinate system. We're good here. We'll tell it to clip to the model extent, and then we'll close and refresh. Okay, so they're in here, and we're taking a look at them. They're a little bit lower than what we want, and the silver is a bit darker here than what it kind of looked like in the preview. So they're in here, and that's good, but they're not quite what we're looking for, right? So the nice thing is that all we have to do is come back and hit configure again, and they're already in there. They're already loaded, so we just need to adjust some things. So the lines look a little big, so we're going to take them down a little bit here. We'll make them 4-inch. And they're not quite where we want them to sit on the pole, so let's bring those up a bit. And then the last thing is the color doesn't really look right, so let's go ahead and make it a darker color. So let's try this. This is one, just a pipeline that's black. So we'll close and refresh that. And once it regenerates, that's a little closer to what we're looking for. So the lines look like they're about the right height. The color's better, and everything looks pretty good. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in some transformers to try to give it a little more realistic look. So go to our SQLite file, grab the transformer, click open. And then the same process again. We just need to configure the transformer. And it is a connector again. And we'll say that the offset is 20 feet. And we want to grab our transformer. So again, go back to our 3D model. They're stored in utilities, and then we have a little transformer right here. Let's tell that OK. We'll check, make sure our coordinate system is good. It is. We'll clip to the model again, and it looks like we should be good. So we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so you can see there's not one on each pole because there's, only a transformer where there actually is one. So you can see this guy here, doesn't have a transformer. But if we move over here and zoom in a little bit, you can see there's a transformer on the pole. It's not quite perfect yet, but for our purposes, it's pretty good. It's good enough for right now, and then you can adjust it as you need to. Again, like I showed you, you just reconfigure it again. And adjust it as necessary. But for how quick it was, we're up and running. We've got our basic electric stuff in here, and we can start making presentations and doing the work we need to do. So now that we've got some electric data in here, we're just going to make a quick little flyby or storyboard. So the way we get to the storyboard is actually click right here, create and conduct design presentation. So we'll do that, and then we'll move our bookmark back to where we were. So what we're going to do is use the storyboard creator, which is up here in the top left. So what we're going to do is, in this scenario, we're going to pan around this building here and view it and zoom in a little bit, zoom back out. just kind of show some of the basic storyboard options that you can do. So we'll go ahead and click on Storyboard Creator, and you can see that we have one up from before. So we will get the GoToMeeting out of our way here. So you can export the storyboard to video, and this will actually export the storyboard we have as a video. You can export it, you can add a new storyboard, import existing storyboards, and so on. This is our play button and stop button, so you can preview the storyboard. And here's where we actually add things like a camera path, or there's several different animations. We can add a new caption, or we can add a new title. We can also change the date and time for the animation, so we can make it appear to be evening time and that sort of thing. So what we will do is we will just create a new storyboard and start over. So first thing we want to do is give it a name. So we'll just call this Hello World. So the first thing you might want to do is give it a title so that you know what your presentation is at the start, and your audience can see it as well. So we'll add a new title, and you can change, you can change the font, change the size, make it bold or not. There's ways for it to transition in and out, so you can do a fade or a cut. We'll just leave it as a fade and keep it kind of simple for now. So we'll say Hello World for anyone who's familiar with any sort of basic program creation. That's always the first project you do is Hello World, so that seems appropriate. Okay, so what we're going to do is start with our camera here, and we're just going to orbit around this kind of orange tinted building here, just to give a, a basic storyboard creation process. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to slide to our left here. So we're starting out on this corner. So there's a few things. There's a look around animation, which is basically exactly what you would think. You can make the camera look left and right or up and down, that sort of thing. There's an orbit, which will actually rotate the camera in an orbit, and you can specify how many degrees. We're going to use the pan and zoom, which will move. You can pan the camera and then zoom in or out. And we're also going to use the track animation, which is the one we're going to work with right now, which is just going to slide our camera to the left. And then there's also just the zoom without the pan portion. So for our purposes, we want to pan across the side here, so we're just going to add a track animation. And then we're going to go about 170 feet. Let's try that. And then you can always preview the one we're working on. So we have it selected, and then we'll just preview what it looks like. So we'll slide to the left a bit. And it looks like that's probably pretty good. We might want to go a little bit further, so we'll make it 185 and then preview. That's probably good. So one thing to keep in mind too, so you could also record yourself trying to move your camera around, but it's never going to be as precise as using the storyboard creator. So it's always better to use the storyboard creator itself in order to get a nice smooth transition between things. So we've got a basic track in there. We might actually want to go a little bit further, so we'll do that. So next, we want to rotate around to the next side of the building. So we'll go ahead and add an orbit. And we know we want to go from this side all the way to the side adjacent. So we're going to want a 90-degree orbit. And the base time is set for 3 seconds for each part of the storyboard. So 3 seconds is probably going to be a little bit fast, so let's up that to 5 seconds so we'll get a smoother pan around. So let's take a look at what that'll look like. All right, so we panned around to that side. And then we want to track left a little bit further, so we'll go back and we'll add another track animation. And we're going to track left again, and we'll just take the default value and see what we get. And that'll work pretty good for us. So now we want to move around to the front of the building, so we need another orbit. And again, we know we want to go all the way to the next side, so that's going to be 90 degrees. And then 90 degrees is a fair distance, so we want to up the time a little bit. And pan around. So now we want to zoom in on the central area of the building here. So we want to do a pan and zoom. So what we're going to do is grab our drop-down menu again, click Add Pan and Zoom. And so we can go either direction. We could go left or right. We can also go up and down. In our case, we want to go to the right a bit. Let's call it 75 feet. And 50% is probably a bit much. So let's just zoom in 25% and see how that looks. We're going to try to aim for the center of this building here. That's pretty good. If we want to get a better angle, we can add a little bit of down on here too. So let's just go, say, 15 feet down and then play that and see how we get. So that's pretty good. We could zoom in more to get more central on the building itself. So we'll try a 35. That's pretty good. So the next thing we'll show is how to do a look around animation. So if, say, you want to catch the building at a certain angle, or if there's something off to the side that you want to see as well. Here, I'll close this so we don't have that in the way. So we'll add a look around. So we'll add a look animation, and then you can choose the angle. You can do left or right, and then you can do up or down. So for us, we're just going to do a left, and we don't want 45 degrees. That's pretty steep, so we'll just do a 15 and take a look. So it should rotate our camera for us to give us the angle view. And then we want to bring the camera back to focus, so we need to add another angle view in the reverse direction to reset it. So come back to our menu, add a look around, and then this time we want to go back to the right, and we went 15 before, so we want to go 15 again to reset it, and that'll bring us back to center. Okay, so now we want to pan the rest of the building. So in this case, perhaps on this side of the building there's not as much that you really need to see. Maybe what you're working on is kind of concentrated on the front, so you just want to make it back around to where you started. So we'll go ahead and add another orbit, and we'll make this one 180 degrees. And 180, we definitely don't want to do in 3 seconds, so let's take that up to, say, 10 and see how that looks. We're going to come all the way around, and we're back on the back side of the building where we started. So the last thing we want to show you here is just how the crane animation works. So we'll use it to kind of get more of a top-down view. So we add the crane animation. You can choose to just move the camera up, or you can move the camera back as well. So you could just go up, or you could go up and back. You can also crane down, so it will, go down and forward instead of up and back. But we're just going to do a crane up, and we're going to say we'll do about 150 feet, and back about 45. That's probably okay. So we'll just try that and see how that looks. So that gives us a pretty good top-down view. So at this point, you know, for our little scenario, we'll say that that's the point that we want to stop at. We want to end with the top-down view. So we can add a new caption, and you can put whatever, you know, you wanted to. For us, we're just going to put the end. And we're done with that. So now we can view the entire thing. So there's a couple things you can do with the slider. You can see it kind of moves through things. So I'm just going to quickly slide it back to the beginning. And so you could stop at certain points and record, or sorry, not record, but play from there just to test things. But I'm going to slide it all the way back, and then we'll start and preview it there. So we'll actually play the whole thing. And so one thing to remember is with sharing this online and through the screen sharing with GoToMeeting, you know, it may not be perfectly smooth for you guys. On my screen, it's completely smooth. So all of this is a smooth transition, and it rotates around the building, zooms in, and then pans the camera angle, zooms back out, and so on, and continues around. So you know, it's just one of those unfortunate things that it's not going to be quite perfect over the video sharing, but it's one thing to keep in mind that everything is going to be a smooth transition when you're working with it in InfraWorks itself. And we pop up the end there at the end. So we've made our storyboard. We've brought our data in. We can see our poles and stuff here, our transformers and whatnot. So the next step would be we've made our changes and added what we wanted to do, and so now we can put it up on 360 and share it via the cloud so that you know, coworkers and whatnot can review it as well. So it's a pretty simple process. I'll show you how to go through it. So up here, there's just to publish this model to InfraWorks 360. So all you have to do is click Publish, and then it's going to check the model. And then you can tell it to add scenarios and stuff. So add the scenario, and then you can tell it which group to publish to. So there's my group or there's Steven's group, so we would say publish to mine, for example. And then once you do that, the only thing left to do is click Publish. I'm not going to do that here because it will take probably 10 to 15 minutes. And again, it depends on your connection speed. Obviously, the faster your connection speed is, the faster it's going to upload. But literally all you have to do is click the Publish button, and then it'll upload to the cloud, and then it'll let you know when it's done. And then once it's done, anyone who has access to your group will be able to see it and bring it down. And so to show you that, we'll just go back to the home screen. So for example, this one is up in the cloud right now. You can see here. All I would do is click on this guy here, and then it'll ask you if you want to download it or not, and then you just click download, and then you have a local copy you can work with and make changes and then upload it back to the cloud.